Got a little revenge 10 years later, huh?
Well, you know, I certainly don't think it bothers Andre as much as it bothered me 10 years ago. But you know, it's nice to go out and play well against good players, and you know, it's you know, as difficult as it is to play periodically, it's a lot of fun when you hit a streak where a few days in a row it doesn't feel all that foreign to you. And you know, this week was that week, and you know, I owe it probably the fact that we played a tournament just a couple weeks ago, and so some of the movement felt a little bit more natural than normal. And despite the challenge of the conditions with as fast as they were, I developed surprisingly a very good feel for the ball here, and you know, combine that with serving well. I mean, I think we're all fortunate that Wayne caught Philippoussis early in the tournament, because you know, if his serve hits a rhythm, I mean, it's dreadful.
Talk a little more about your serve today. You really had that going on pretty well.
Yeah, you know, I started off the first game or so, I really was overhitting my serve. You know, my recollection of him is I better beat him with the serve or else. And but at the same time, no matter who I play, the best I serve is when I'm rhythmic and controlled. I mean, and just allow leverage to generate pace as opposed to trying to muscle it. And you know, certainly by the third game I served in the first set, I felt like as long as I didn't get carried away, and as long as he didn't guess correctly, I was going to have a really effective serve. And you know, as the case was, that became more and more true.
Last night when we talked, you mentioned something that clicked in your mind during the match from your own junior coach.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it the pot of gold?
Yeah. Well, the pot of gold is always at the net for me. But you know, I had to find some different ways to get there. And you know, early on, there was one game where I served and volleyed a few times, and you know, right off the bat, he got the ball down low, and you know, really made me really challenged my volleying. And you know, after that, I tempered it a little bit and was willing to make my my approach off the second ball instead of you know, instead of relying on serving and volleying. And I served well enough, but I also, you know, it's been a long time since Andre's competed, and the other guys he played this week don't play like me, so you know, I benefited certainly from a bit of lack of rhythm in his own game, and most importantly, you know, early on in the match, he had trouble developing a rhythm with his first serve, and then I was able to put a lot of pressure on his second serve, and so I was effective when he made it. But then I also elicited some double faults as well.
What's going through your mind in that game that he's fine? He had some break opportunities. He finally gets the break.
Yeah, you know that. You know, I think from 4-2, you know, he held to get to 2-4, but at 4-2 serving, I really struggled, and I lost my rhythm, and you know, I always chuckle at the question of, like the PTI guys and the round the horn guys, did they lose it, or did this team win it, or this, because the fact of the matter is, it's always a relationship. And, Andre might have picked his level up 2%, and that forced my level down 2%. Or I might have dropped 2%, and that allowed his level to go up 2%. And I tell you, what looks to be very smooth and simple, at 6-3-4-1, geez, I'm at 30 all several times on my own serve, and I'm not exactly commanding his service games, except for the games I've broken him. And so I really, it was a real challenge for me, because then, as good as my rhythm was throughout the week on my serve, I really hit a bad patch with it, and I had to rely on. And fortunately, the ball bounces real high here, and so I had to actually rely on hitting some kick serves as first serves, and that's in one way one of those dreadful displays of my lack of rhythm, but at the same time, it's a great luxury to have, because it still allows me to develop a point to dictate, rather than, continuing to try to slap first serves and then have to rely on my second serve and get out of trouble that way.
It's your second year here, finals last year, champion this year. Just your impressions of this event over the past 2 years.
Well, we all left here last year thinking it was great, boy, really well organized, and I know the inside out guys really appreciate how buttoned up everything is by the time they get here. But for us, boy, there's nothing more important than going out on the court and having fans in the seats, but on top of having them in the seats, engaged and excited about what's going on. There's a lot made of the junior nationals in Kalamazoo for the 16s and 18s boys, and we all played it, and all the American guys played it, and we all deemed that to be our first big time experience. That's the professional event of junior tennis, as far as the way they run it and the community support that they get. And we've got several good events on this OCS, but this one it feels like Kalamazoo. It feels like it's a bigger deal than the average.
Conditions were a little bit better weather-wise than you were.
Well, the conditions were great weather-wise last year until about a set in 3-2. And then the weather conditions worsened, and my mental condition worsened at the same time. So, if I had to choose who I'd rather beat, I'd rather beat John, because it would just feel better. Since we started playing, or since I started playing as a older individual, I've said, it still feels good to win, but it just doesn't hurt, doesn't feel nearly as bad to lose, and that concept, or that theory, was significantly challenged last year when I left Surprise. And so it's nice to come back and, if nothing else, redeem myself and have Mother Nature redeem herself too.